Hey everybody, I'm Scott Weichel, and you are listening to My Kind of Country. I can't tell you how excited I am to have this lady on the show tonight because I've been a fan of hers for so many years, and it all started with an album called Duets Country Style with one of my all-time favorites, George Jones, back in the '60s. And she's had some of the best country music out there, and not only that, she is a pioneer in the music business. She's done so much both in front of and behind the scenes, and just a wealth of information. It's a very distinct pleasure to have her on my show tonight. Please welcome Margie Singleton. Margie, how are you tonight?
I'm good, Scott. Thank you for having me. I looked around behind me to see if there was somebody back there that you were talking about. And so,
No, that's all you. That's all you. I tell you, it's I have to tell the folks kind of a behind the scenes story. You and I were actually chatting on Facebook the other night when I was doing my radio show, and you were listening in and you were sending me requests, and I was putting them on. We had a blast, you know.
we did. I'm not too literate on that messaging and stuff and computers at all. They're just a mystery to me. But we did. We talked back and forth, didn't we?
We made it. You were listening to the show and talking, so you were multitasking. That's impressive, Margie.
That's a miracle in itself.
I love it. I love it. Well, you've got just a fantastic history in country music, and I want to just start from the beginning and just go through this wonderful journey with you. And you were first with Star Day Records. That's how you first had your recording
Right.
contract. Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, I started writing. I lived in Shreveport, Louisiana, and of course the Louisiana Hayride was there, and that was my desire, was to be on the Hayride, and I started writing songs, and I'd go every Saturday night to the Hayride, and I got friends with Benny Barnes, who had a hit record out. I can't ever think of the name of it, but it was a big record at that time, and I got to be friends with him, and I was writing, and he liked a song that I wrote, and he was going to record it, and he wanted to know if me and my husband at that time wanted to go to Houston with him to record with Pappy Daly on Star Day Records, and I did, and Pappy recorded me that night. And in listening back to it, I don't know what in the world he saw in me, but you know, everybody's got to start somewhere, and he saw something in me that he liked a little bit, and I thank God every day for Pappy Daly and Star Day Records and Don Pierce, and I was there first, and then where are we going now, Scott? What do we want to know? That's my beginning.
That's your beginning. Well, then you a couple years later you signed with Mercury Records, and then you had a
Yeah.
couple pretty famous duet partners there.
Right. Well, in the meantime, before that, I did get on the Louisiana Hayride, became a member, and that was a thrill to me. And before the Nashville scene, I did a lot of the Jubilee USA shows with Red Foley in Springfield, Missouri. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. It was a big show at that time. Actually, it was the first network, ABC network television show of country music, I believe, if I'm correct in that.
You are very correct, yes.
It's network television, and it was a great thrill to get to be on there. And then I did come to Nashville, and in 1959 I recorded the album with George, and it was naturally both of us. He was a little bit ahead of me. He was a little bit bigger, and he's still a whole lot bigger than me. He went on to greater heights than I did, but it was a thrill to get to do that album with him. I was fortunate enough to do, I think I wrote two, maybe three songs on there, but I know I did two on that album. So it satisfied my writing hunger and my singing hunger at the same time.
What was it like recording with George? Did you guys sing your parts together, or did you do them separately?
Oh, back then, honey, there wasn't but two tracks. The music was on a track and the singers was on the other. And if you messed up, there wasn't no stopping and starting. You had to start and start all over. No, we did it together on the same mic.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
you don't have those and 48 tracks.
Well, you certainly were the very first big duet that Jones had. And of course, he went on with Melba Montgomery and then Tammy Wynette some years later. But it was you guys first, and you had some big hits. You know, you had Waltz of the Angels and Did I Ever Tell You, and oh gosh, Yearning, which I absolutely love. And
Yeah.
there's a couple
I
songs.
I must say that I'm the first duet partner on an album that sang with him on an LP album. Did 12. Actually, I did 14 sides, and I'll tell you about the other two. But a lady by the name of Jeanette Hicks was on the hayride at that time, and she sang Yearning with him first.
Mm-hmm. And that was on
And
Starday.
I did in the album a little bit later, but she only did a single with him.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to be the first woman that did a full-fledged album with him, and I'm thrilled to death about that. And then I had to duet with Farron Young, Keeping Up with the Joneses, and No Thanks, I Just Had One, and a couple of other things. And unfortunately, just after we had those hits on Mercury, my husband at that time was A&R director for Mercury Records, and he decided he had found greener pastures on the other side, and he went off and we got divorced. And so that people want to know now, why in the world didn't we follow up Keeping Up with the Joneses? Well, folks, that's the reason why. My husband took the song at that time. My husband, Shelby Singleton, took our next record was going to be Mr. Peters, and he gave it to Roy Drusky and Priscilla Mitchell. Priscilla was Jerry Reed's wife, and she did background vocals only. She never did sing on a single or anything, but he gave the song to them instead of me and Farron, and that was to be our next single, and it was a big record by her and Roy. And that's why we didn't have a follow-up. Because Farron was left on Mercury, and I was dropped, and I went to it just left my
United Artists.
United Artists.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Bear. I went to United Artists, and then I met and married Leon Ashley, and he formed a record label, Ashley Records, and incidentally, he wrote, recorded, put on his own label, put it out on his own label in the beginning, a song called Laura, What's He Got That I Ain't Got? And it was a monster hit and recorded by many, many people, including Kenny Rogers, Tom Jones, Marty Robbins, even Brooke Benton in the pop field recorded it, and James Burton and Ralph Mooney did an instrumental on it. It was a big, big record, and he formed Ashley Records, and then, of course, I came with Ashley, and everything I had else then was on that. And he gave me he recorded my first album, single album, and gave it to me as a wedding present.
Oh, wow.
To use it. So, yeah.
Well, you guys had some great duets together as well, and the one I like is Hanging On. I always love that song.
Oh, yeah, I do too. That, and we had a song called 4 O'Clock, and Ease Up was a pretty big record for us. And our voices blended, and we just had a good feel between me and Leon. And he passed away, unfortunately, 3 years ago, and I just died with him. In the beginning, for 2 years, I was just a lost soul. I never planned to sing again. But the Lord had other ideas for me, and he started giving me these songs, gospel songs, and I wrote 10 songs for a CD that I released last year called On the Other Side of Life. And that title song I wrote about Leon's passing, and it's touched a lot of people who've lost loved ones. And then another song that they like out of the album is I Chose You. And then Leon has one song in it that he wrote and recorded before he passed away, Making Payments. and it's a very awesome song. And another one that I didn't write, the only two I didn't write was that one and a song called On My Father's Side.
Oh, I love that
And
song.
I didn't realize that was a huge hit. My head was stuck in the ground, I guess. But I went to Texas, and a friend of mine played it for me by a local couple out there. And I thought it was their song. They told me it was their song and everything, that it had been left to them on their doorstep. A tape of it, but that didn't turn out to be true. But anyway, I came home and I recorded it, and I loved the song. It's an awesome song. I only wish I had written it, and on my father's side. But I started doing that, and then a fellow by the name of Don Caldwell, and well, first of all, a guy by the name of Tommy Honky Tonky. That was who he called himself on the Facebook thing, and he thinks me and oh gosh, I can't think of the other girl's name. He loves mine and her music. I'll try to Boots Till, Till. He posts me and her all the time, and we're his favorite female singers of all time, thank God. And he posted us, and Don Caldwell heard me, and he had never heard of me, and he was posting things on Facebook, and he formed a show called Keeping It Country. And he got in touch with Tommy, and who got in touch with me and said Don wanted to talk to me. And I don't talk to everybody on Facebook. You know, there's a lot of crazies out there. I let it run by for a while, and finally I thought, well, he just kept wanting to call me, and I finally thought, well, it can't harm him just to call me. And he did, and he set up a show here in Nashville, in Madison, Tennessee, on my 80th birthday, a birthday party for me, and had artists come in and do and sing, and we had a show for Margie's birthday, and that touched me. It was real nice of him. And it just went on from there, and I've been asked to be on a lot of local shows, and just doing things. And now, I don't know, Judy Bailey told you about me and her having our little senior sisters tour.
She sure did, yeah. That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to that.
They have the first generation, the kids of of Theron's son and Bob Lumen's daughter and Hawkshaw Hawkins' son, Hawk. They have a big show here once a year, the new generations. So Judy and I are going to set up a senior sisters thing, and we feel real good about it. We're going to get all of us senior sisters who have been there and done that, and we're going to do it again before we leave this world. We hope. If God has His hand on it, we'll do it.
Fantastic. Well, I've watched some video of you that Judy's posted. Man, you're singing fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be great. And folks, the CDs that you have currently, if anybody wants those, just please get in touch with us on our Facebook page, and we'll get in touch with Margie and make sure that you can get those.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I've got one that Bear Family released that I'm sending to you. It has 30 songs on it, and it's songs that I recorded in the 60s, and it has 30 on it, and it's called Jukebox Pearls.
Fantastic.
And then I'm sending that to you. Then I've got one that we put together of two albums that I have. I had Prime Time and Country Music with Soul. And Leon, before he passed away, he put those two albums together and made a CD out of it. And it's called Country Music with Soul, and it has 20 songs.
Oh, great.
That I recorded during my Ashley Records with Leon. And then I have my gospel CD on the other side of life that I released in March 2016, a year ago. And I'm getting ready to, the Lord has been giving me both country and gospel songs, and I'm getting ready to go to Shreveport, my hometown, and record with my a little guy that is like a son to me. He calls me his other mother, and he just reads me, and I read him in recording, and I'm going to go there. We have a lot of studios here and a lot of great talent, but for some reason, I'm comfortable with him in the studio. So I'm going to go the 6th of June and record these new songs the Lord has given me, both country and gospel. And I don't know what the titles of them are going to be yet, but I'm praying that he's given me some good songs to write, and praying that it'll come out good. If the Lord has his hand on it, I know he will. It'll come out good.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I sure appreciate it. We're going to definitely play your music on the show, and I appreciate you sending me those. And then when you get your new project on, I hope you'll take time and come back on, because I'd love to do a feature on that, too.
You know I will. No, I will.
That would be great.
Let you know.
Well, a lot of folks don't realize that you are also a tremendous avid songwriter, and you wrote a couple really big hits for Brooke Benton, "Lie to Me" and "My True Confession."
Yeah, and Tammy Wynette did a couple of my songs. Mine and Leon's "The Woman in Me." No, not "The Woman in Me." "Enough of a Woman."
Oh yeah.
And she recorded that. I also did, but and then "What's a Little Rain." Tammy recorded of ours, and Lynn Anderson recorded "Flower of Love" that Leon and I wrote. Leon had a big record on that too. And yes, I've been fortunate enough to have had some, not as many as my peers have, but my name is not a household name, but it's in the houses that God wanted it to be in. And I think he didn't want me to be in the mainstream of everything back then, because it might have carried me where he didn't want me to go. And I think now he's got his hand on me, and with this new project and the last one that I did, and I think maybe if I'm pleasing him, he'll let it happen.
That's wonderful. Well, I have to tell you, I do think you're selling yourself a little bit short, because I get an awful lot of requests for your music, and the folks, once you have country fans, they're fans for life. And
They are.
there's a lot of people out there that know the name Margie Singleton, and including myself. As I said before, I've always been a fan of your music. You know, I will admit it started when I first heard the duet album with George Jones, but then I started digging in and listening to your music, and I tell you what, you got one of the greatest voices, and you've had some of the best songs, and I absolutely love your music.
Well, you make me very humble. I do not usually put myself out there on my own. I never have been one to kind of push my own self. I had a manager, Linda Denny, who was Jim Denny's daughter, who was the first manager of the Grand Ole Opry, and Jim Denny had cedarwood music with all the writers like Hank Williams and Mel Tilley, Webb Pierce, and her father, her family, and the Owen Bradley's family were the instigators of this the old country, getting country music started. But Linda wanted to be in the business. She was a school teacher, and Leon had the hit record on Laura, and we needed a manager and somebody to book us, and he talked to her about it, and she quit teaching school and working for the CMA, Country Music Association, and came to work with us, and it's been a love affair from day one. And she's very sick now. She has MS and scoliosis, and has had cancer, just got over cancer surgery, and she's still promoting Margie Singleton. She's promoted Leon Ashley and Margie Singleton for 40-something years, and she's now still promoting out there. You know, she just never takes an opportunity. She always takes the opportunity that comes along to promote Margie now, and still Leon too. And I give her credit for Linda Denny. She's my rock, and I just want all the listeners out there to pray for her, because she's in a bad place right now.
Well, we certainly do.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We certainly do send our best to her. Absolutely. And I think that's wonderful that you've stayed close, and you can tell how much she means to you. That's just fabulous.
She does. So we're muddling through a bad time right now. God has let me have good health. I do have health problems. I have a balance problem is my main issue. For a while I was on a cane, and I said, Lord, I don't want this cane. I'm not going to accept it because it was Satan putting it on me, and I said, I'm not going to use it. Please don't let me fall. And thus far, he's kept me walking, but I am very unbalanced. And I had an MRI yesterday, a brain scan, to see if they can locate why I'm unbalanced. But that's okay. He's still letting me go and do. And I know that if I praise him and give him all praise for everything I do, that he's going to be with me.
Well, you're blessed to be able to continue to do what you love, and that's
Yes.
wonderful. And I know that not only myself but all of your fans are very, very happy to hear you and be able to enjoy your music. And you brought a lot of enjoyment to people over all these years, and we thank you for that.
I thank you. Thank all the listeners out there that do remember me and like my music. It means the world to me. And anything I can do for any of them, just get in touch with me at Post Office Box 567, Hendersonville, Tennessee, 37075, or get in touch with Scott, and he'll tell you how to let me know how to get in touch. We'll get in touch that way, and I do. My last album was on CD Baby, and I'm on YouTube and Reverb Nation, where they can buy a single song online.
Great.
99 cents, I think they charge on Reverb Nation. But
Okay.
the CD itself is for sale on the other side of life. It's for sale on CD Baby and Amazon, I think. The physical CDs, I guess. I don't know. And the Jukebox Pearls is available on Amazon through Bear Family Records. It's Margie Singleton, Jukebox Pearls, Pledging My Love.
Love Bear Family Records. They have done some fabulous projects, and we'll find links to all those and put them on our Facebook page too, so folks can very easily get that music. And
great, appreciate it, because I am computer illiterate. I had this little. We did I don't know if you saw it or not, but we did a little test thing on. I told my friend Joe Brooker. He's my shoulder these days, a great singer and writer, musician, and he has become one of. I have a lot of adopted children. I'm his Tennessee mama. He's from Florida, but he and I told him, I said, Joe, I've got this idea for a song. Help me write it. It's called Lost in Cyberspace. And he said, that's a great idea, because he knows how I am. I can't do much on the computer. So we said, okay, let's write it. But then we didn't know he's 40, and he was a little bit beyond some of those new Snapchat and all those sayings, sign on, all that. So we got this young lady that worked for WSM Radio, who was the assistant to Davin O'Day at 3 o'clock every day on WSM. So we got her in on the board to help us write it, and we wrote it and put it out on Facebook. It's called Lost in Cyberspace, Margie Singleton, and Scott, I got 11,000 hits on it in a week and a half.
Well, see, now your fans are there. Your fans are there.
Yeah, so we want to do it right. We want to put out a real thing on it. So we recorded it, made a video of it. That was a little video, but it was just a homemade thing. And so we had somebody come in to my music room. We recorded it. We had Lonnie Spiker and are you familiar with Tim Atwood?
Oh, you bet.
He's awesome.
Fabulous keyboard
So
player.
he was playing the keyboard on it, and we just had a great little session on it. And so this Chuck Parker, he's the engineer for the Ernest Tubb Midnight Jamboree.
Oh, yeah.
And he came in and he recorded it, brought in his equipment and did the video, and he's getting it ready to release worldwide and on all the media here, the internet media like CD Baby and YouTube and all the places where the people can hear it and buy it. And we've got high hopes for it. Everybody that's seen and heard it, even from the 15-year-old to the 80-year-old, you know, it really hits the older generation because we're lost inside space.
Yeah, I understand. You know, when I started doing this show, it was a learning process for me. You know, I didn't grow up with computers, and my daughter's 11 years old, and she can do everything. You know, because they grew up with this stuff. So.
I know it was this little girl, Joe Rucker's daughter. Her name is Campbell Rucker, and so on the videos, we had her sit beside me out of the camera range, and I said at the end of it, I said, "What am I going to do? What am I going to do about that?" And she grabs my phone out of my hand and fools with it and put it back in my hand, and she said, "Here's what you do about that." And I said, "Oh, that's what I do about that."
That's great. I love it. What fun. So, I'm looking forward to hearing that, and I'll certainly share that with my listeners, too. That's fantastic.
Well, you can hear it. You can see the demo of it on Facebook.
I'll
Go
check
to
it
my
out.
page, just scroll down there somewhere, and you might can get it.
I'll check it out.
Just punch it in, type it in, Margie Singleton Lost in Cyberspace. I'm not really sure.
I got to hear that.
It's funny. It's just a crazy thing that hits all people over 50.
Absolutely. I got to check that out. That'll be cool. Well, Margie, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I wanted to ask you about a couple more of your songs, if you don't mind. One of my favorite songs, it was a 1963 hit for you. It's called Old Records.
Yeah, that was my signature song. It was the biggest record I had on my own. It did real well. I think it got in the top 10 and never did reach number 1, but I was satisfied with what it got. Thank you very much. It's one of my favorite things also.
It's a beautiful song. I love it. And my favorite song that she recorded with Farron Young was called Honky Tonk Happy. I think that is one of the greatest country duets.
Is that right? Honky Tonk. Honky Tonk Happy.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest country duets ever.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been pushed back in the sidelines. I hadn't even listened to it lately.
Oh, by gosh, we're going to play it here in a little bit. That's one of my favorites. I love that thing. What what was it like recording with Farron Young and George Jones and spending time with those guys?
Well, with George, we were very, at that time, we were very serious about doing this album, you know, and we cut up. You can tell in the records we joked back and forth, and all of that joking was ad-lib. In the songs, you know, where we're bantering back and forth. It was all ad-lib, just a fun session. And with Farron, it was the same, not as much of joking and laughing, but Farron was there. We cut those songs, and like I say, I got a divorce right after that was out. And Farron was there for me. I couldn't record with him because he was on Murphy, but I lost everything at that time. I lost my label. I lost my publisher. I lost my recording contract and everything. So I had 2 boys to raise, and Farron said, "Well, we've got this duet out. Can you come on the road with me and do the shows?" And I said, "Well, yeah," you know, and I did, and we were working, and he actually introduced me to Leon.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and
that's cool.
And so Leon, he saw me before he ever met me walking down the street with Lloyd Rusky, and he asked, he was at some publisher's booking agent's name, and I can't even think of the guy now, but he asked who I was, and he said, "I'm going to marry that girl. He never saw me before, but we had talked on the phone. I had gone to Memphis with my ex-husband, Shelby, before we divorced, and Leon was managing Jerry Lee Lewis at the time. And the phone rang, and Leon and him, Shelby and him were talking, and he asked me to answer the phone, and it was Leon calling him. So he heard my voice, and he saw me on the street, and then my friend, my secretary at that time, told me about this guy from Georgia that had a song out that I ought to hear, and it was she took me to Tootsie's Orchid Lounge to hear it, and it was Leon singing "You Gave Me Reason to Live."
Oh yeah!
It was such a heartfelt, beautiful song, and I fell in love with his voice, and he fell in love with mine before we ever met. And then Farron introduced us, and so that was in October. Well, I went to Christmas. I went to Shreveport to see my folks, and Leon came to Shreveport, and he asked me to marry him. And he told Farron when we came back that he had asked me to marry him. And he said, "Well, you know Farron, how he talks." He said, "To H-U-L-L, you say." And Leon said, "Yeah." He said, Farron said, "Well, you know, we've got these tours booked. Are we going to be able to is she going to be able to finish them and to work with me on the road?" Leon said, "Well, sure." He said, "But I'm going with her." So he did, and we did finish the bookings that we had, and then Leon and I met Linda, and she started booking us separately, and that's how that happened. So anyway, It's just a funny story. And
amazing how things work out, isn't it?
Yes, God works things out.
Absolutely. Well, one of the treasures in my collection, I have the album you did with George Jones, the Duets Country Style, and we were talking about Bear Family earlier. They released a wonderful box set on George Jones, and it's got the entire album, but there's also a couple of unreleased songs that you guys recorded in there too, and I've played them on my show.
I've talked you to death.
No, that's all right.
Talked you to death, but do you know what? Those two songs I had forgotten. They have been in the can, what they say, for 50 years. And I heard that on YouTube, on One by One, and my guitar player was riding along with me, and it came on, and he said, I said, "That sounds like me." He said, "It is you." I said, "No, I don't remember that." And he said, "Well, Margie, it's you, look." And it came back to me later, but I did not remember those two songs, One by One and One Excuse as Good as Another. And it just got lost in my mind and got lost in the studio, I guess. I don't know why they never released them.
Oh, they're great songs. I've played them on my show. I think I played it the other night when you were listening. I think I played
you did.
One by One, yeah. And a lot of folks don't know, too, that you actually recorded Harper Valley PTA and had an album by that name before Jeannie C. Riley had it out.
Yes, I did. There's a big story there. I had Ode to Billy Joe. It was a big hit country. And Leon and I had a tour in Europe. We went to Europe and did our tour. We were going to release Harper Valley PTA. Tom T. Hall wrote Harper Valley PTA for me to follow up Ode to Billy Joe. So my master tape was in the studio. And somehow my ex-husband got my tape from the studio. I know how, but I'm not saying. But anyway, when we got off the plane coming back, we turned the radio on, and Jeannie C. Riley was singing Harper Valley PTA. So Leon just immediately was so angry. He went to the studio and said, "Where's my tape?" And it wasn't there. And he told the engineer, he said, "Well, if it's not there by tomorrow, I'm going to own Columbia Records." That's where we had recorded it, Columbia Studio. So he went back the next day. Miraculously, it was there. So he flew to New York. He sold an album that we didn't even have recorded. We went into a schoolroom and wrote on the wall Harper Valley PTA, and even some guys from Hank Williams' band Don Helms and some of the other guys was in the PTA chairs, come to PTA meeting. And that was the cover for this album. We went into the studio and we even wrote songs to go in this album while we were in the studio. And Marty Robbins let us write a girl version of You Gave Me a Mountain. We wrote it in the studio while we were recording, and we put that in there, and we got that order for 100,000 albums initially on it. So we had the album out first, but it's her signature song. But I was bitter for a while, but I let it go because there again, God didn't want me to have that.
Yeah.
And so he took it, put it where it needed to be at that time, but I've let all that go, and I'm proud that Jeannie did a great job on it. She had the sassiness in her voice, and I understand that she hated the song. And Shelby was her producer, and she didn't want to record it, and they made her sing it so many times. They wanted her to get mad, so this is what I've heard came from her through a friend of mine, that she sang it so many times that she did get angry. And that's how it brought out the sassy in her voice. It was great for the song.
I love it.
I understand that that's true. She never told me that, but she told a dear friend, a mutual friend, that that's what happened.
That's great. Well, they tell you music is for the soul, but the music business is not. So there you have it.
It's cutthroat, and you just got to take what you get and be grateful.
Well, in spite of it all, you've had a tremendous body of work and some just fantastic music. And listeners, I encourage you to get a hold of anything you can on Margie Singleton, because she is one of the best voices you will ever hear in country music. And Margie, I just cannot tell you what an honor it has been to talk to you today, and I really want to thank you for taking time to be on my show.
Well, it's totally my pleasure, Scott. I think there again, the Lord puts people in your path. And you're just a wonderful guy, and I just thank you so much for allowing me to tell my story and to refresh myself in the memory of my fans' minds and maybe make new fans. Who knows?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're going to play a bunch of your music right now. We're going to play some Leon Ashley and just make it just a fantastic set here with some great music from Margie Singleton. Thank you so much for being on My Kind of Country.
And when are you going to be playing this?